Thank you, John. So in the next 10 minutes, I'll attempt to tell you a little bit about Serengeti balancing development at the Kwanika project with exploration to maximize shareholder value. I will be covering a number of some of our exploration bets, and of course we'll be making and pleased to make forward-looking statements. So the Serengeti investment thesis, we've an experienced management, and in fact our discovery at Kwanika was recognized back in 2010 as by the AME BC as a new discovery of the year. We're currently advancing the Kwanika project in partnership with POSCO Daewoo. We're fully funding a pre-feasibility study that's underway currently. Of course, what really excites us and excites investors is the potential to make new discoveries, and we think we've got a strong potential to do that at our Atty project, which sits adjacent to the Kemess mine, one of the Kemess deposits, and a particularly attractive exploration bet that we put some results out on yesterday, the Croy-Bloom project. And then we've backed that up with a whole pipeline of earlier stage projects. So in terms of capital structure and ownership, we've got about just over 90 million shares currently outstanding, 100 billion fully diluted. We've got about $3.5 million currently in Kwanika Copper Corp, which is the owner, the company that's advancing the Kwanika project, and just over 800,000 in Serengeti Resources. You've got management, insiders, and founders with a very significant stake in this company. We own just under 34% of the shares. In terms of the management team, my background was I came from Cameco Limited, Cameco Resources International, Tech Cameco on the exploration side. George DeCannon did as well. Lou Lorick is on the corporate finance, merchant banking side in Toronto. And Wendell Zerb, who is here with me in the booth, joined us as an advisor earlier on this year. And Quinn Harper is here as well, and was one of the key participants in the Kemess East and Kemess underground drill out. So BC is very much a mining jurisdiction, and I think the best demonstration of that is the fact that mine builders are now betting on British Columbia, and you've seen really over the last couple of years a big influx of companies like Hudbay, Antofagasta, Hochschild only recently, Goldcorp, Teck, of course, been here for a long time, and Centerra Gold. So mine builders and developers believe in the future of British Columbia. So our Kwanika project, and I may just go back to that mine. The Kwanika there is in north central BC, is the red star there in the Quesnel Trough, and our exploration portfolio lies to the north and south of that. So the Kwanika project, it's not quite as well located as Ron's in Maine, but for north central BC, really good and getting better actually by the week, by the month. The area of our project central deposit will in fact be clear-cut logged next year, and that's the leading up to that is a major upgrade on the road and bridge network into the project. It's road accessible. Nearest rail line is about 200 kilometers away, which is where we would envisage hauling concentrate to, and we're within with less than 100 kilometers from the Kemess power line, which would be our connection to the grid. So Kwanika, what does Kwanika represent? Well, it provides exposure to project development. It's a mid-sized project. We would anticipate an annual production, and all these numbers come from a PEA that we completed in 2017. Over the first 8 years of the project, about 70,000 ounces of gold a year and 50 million pounds of copper. That's about 180,000 ounce gold equivalent. That's currently being advanced through completion of a pre-feasibility study, which will be done by the middle of next year, so less than a year from now, and an $8.2 million strategic investment by POSCO Daewoo, the big Korean trading company. We see potential to expand that resource, there's potential for a resource upgrade, and we'll show you some drill core. No drill results yet from this project or drilling. We've just completed, actually, over the last couple of months, about just under 7,500 meters of drilling. That's complete. That included a major geotechnical investigation program, rock mechanics program, hydrogeology, groundwater geology, all the things that you need to do to plan an open pit and a block cave underground mine, which is what we're doing now in the engineering test work, which is ongoing, metallurgical work just kicking off. And of course, we continue doing baseline work and then maintain our relationship with the First Nations. We've had an agreement since the early days on this project, and earlier on this year signed a renewed agreement with the principal First Nation, who are the Takla First Nation, and in fact they are our largest supplier of labor for the project. So they've got a stake in the outcome and a stake in the success of this project. Well, this figure on the right shows that is the surface plan of the central zone on the property. The blue is the pit from the PEA study back in 2017, and the red block rectangle underneath it represents the block cave. Of course, we're going to reshape all of that now in this pre-feasibility study. We completed just 21 holes, about 17 of them were in this view here, and that is some of the drill core from that drilling on the left-hand side. We've got that core out at our booth. The deposit is unusual in that it has a supergene enriched, so a copper enriched zone, native copper on the left there, a chalcocite, so a very copper rich mineral in the dark core, and then really nice primary copper gold grades on the right there. So all of that means that by 2019 we'll be delivering a feasibility stage project into what we in the market believes is a rising copper demand. That demand-supply gap, of course, driven by EV and general electrification. That completion of a pre-feasibility study, if you look at market comparables, should result in a very significant re-rating of Serengeti as we advance and de-risk the project. So that's the Kwanika story. Of course, the really fun part would be to do this again, and we see the potential for that at the Atty project, which lies on the doorstep of the Kemess mine, or Kemess redevelopment, now that's being advanced by Centerra Gold. We believe the faulted offset of one of their deposits, and I'll show you a graphic on that in a minute, as well as a number of other targets. I should say that, Centerra almost seems to be advancing this project by stealth. They haven't announced that they're proceeding with development, and yet you fly over the site and you can see major earthworks, for instance, pit dewatering, getting ready to go underground to develop the Kemess underground deposit. We've got a terrific target now on their doorstep. So what's that target look like? This is a view looking from our property, or this is an option property, but we have an option to acquire 100% interest in that piece of ground. Looking south from Atty towards the Kemess deposits, Kemess underground on the right, and the Kemess east on the left. Kemess underground tops out at about 300 meters below surface and is envisaged as a block cave or panel cave underground mine. The Kemess East is really deep, tops out. It's a remarkable discovery of Auricos, and now owned by Centerra, tops out at about 800 meters. That deposit is cut off on its eastern side. It's very clear in all the drilling. That's cut off on its eastern side by the Kemess East Offset Fault, which tracks across our Atty property. And we've developed, with our work this year and some, I have to say, good work done back in 2007 by previous owners, a really attractive geophysical target there that's got a deposit size, induced polarization or IP chargeability anomaly that combined with the results of prior drilling, the closest hole to this gets it gets copper gold signatures that we would expect to see on the edge of a system. That hole drilled in 2004, actually, hole 7 drilled in 2004. So combining all of that prior work with our mapping, detailed mapping this summer, additional geophysics has resulted in a terrific target that you can see tops out there in the valley bottom at about 200 meters. So we've got a target closer to surface that potentially represents a faulted piece of an existing deposit or possibly another deposit. I would add that if we look at the reserves and resources of those two deposits there, we're pushing 5 million ounces of gold and there's a lot of copper there, 1.2 million tons of copper between that and the past producer. So that's Atty. And yesterday we put out news on the Croy-Bloom project, and I call this an extraordinary drill target, and I think it is an extraordinary drill target. This is the first IP geophysical survey done in this part of the mountain range here, and this is a mountain range. The vertical elevation difference in that slide is about 700 meters. There was the past drilling done here back as early as the mid-90s, and that's encountered attractive gold grades. There's a copper gold horizon there running about 0.6 copper and just under 0.3 grams gold in a magnetite horizon that we think is part of this mineral system. We, back in 2014, went back and resampled some of this core and picked a piece of mineralized rock. It appeared mineralized to us, couldn't figure out why it wasn't analyzed at the time, and it ran just under 1% copper and 3 grams gold. So there's a lot of copper gold here in this on the property, and the signature there's a deposit size signature there, very strong chargeability anomaly and a high resistor, which is exactly what we look for, topping out about 250 meters below surface, so below the depth of prior drilling. And in fact, that copper gold number that I mentioned from near the bottom of this previous hole is still lying above this target. So a really high quality drill target. We'd be envisaging drilling Croy-Bloom and the Atty property in 2019. And they both represent strong potential to discover another Kwanika or better. So then of course, that's all backed up by some really early stage exploration, and that's what we do. I mean, we identify targets, pick them up. We use a lot of government data and synthesize that, put that into our exploration models. Of course, all of these are 8 properties that we staked earlier on this year. They won't all turn out, but if 2 of those develop into great targets, that's a pretty good return given the very low entry price for acquisition of these. So just to sum up, the Serengeti opportunity is really one of the few junior explorers or junior companies with a majority ownership. And I should say we own 65% of that project upon completion of the pre-feasibility study. So we'll deliver to the market in mid-2019 a completed pre-feasibility on what we think is going to be a very attractive development project. Our PFS is looking at identifying higher margin options for that project. We've simplified the project from pre-PEA looks from both a capital, operating, and environmental standpoint, and we believe we're on track to develop or identify a really attractive development project. Of course, that's good. As we advance that project, that's one way we're going to create value. Really creating value on the exploration side of things is by drilling a new system, and we think we have a strong potential to do that on the Atty UDS property and on Croy-Bloom. So that wraps up the Serengeti story. I'd be pleased to speak to you some more about that, look at some of that drill core and rocks that we've got out at the booth, and come out and meet and discuss things with Wendell and Quinn and I. Thanks very much.